want to share a story I heard from an elder while she was reflecting on her youth. She said she used to wake to the smell of biscuits before she even opened her eyes. She'd pull back a curtain and look out the window, where across the way, her neighbor already knew she was up. Not because anyone texted, not because anyone checked an app. That neighbor knew because they were paying attention. And because they were paying attention, they were already moving. They didn't have much, but they had enough. And they'd send a couple of pocketbook rolls over to her because they knew how much she loved them. That is an example of what we call beloved community. And it's relevant because today, I plan to help you see what our country has trained us not to see. I'm going to show you the engine that makes communities invisible and what repair looks like when it is led by those who were harmed. My hope is you leave with the ability to recognize the engine at work and a simple way that you can practice repairing the harm that invisibility can cause. Now, speaking of seeing things differently, you might not know, but 3 of the 12 speakers on the stage today are Black. That's 25%. Now, this city, it's about 7-8% Black, which means this building is now 3 times Blacker than the whole city. So welcome to the cookout. I point that out because careful study of our nation's 250-year history shows that consistently, Black people have been treated as invisible unless their labor, their land, their brilliance, and in most cases, all 3, has been needed by white people. Oh, I got the time today. We going there. So let me give you a phrase that's going to serve as the backbone for everything I'm about to say. Artists shape culture. Culture shapes community. Communities create change. Because change all depends on who gets to author it. And for Black neighborhoods, change has often meant extraction. Take the land, use the labor, appropriate the brilliance, and rename the result as improvement. And in that kind of change, beloved community is what gets erased, mostly because it was never widely seen in the first place. Now, when I talk about culture, I'm not talking about something you only find in museums and festivals. I mean culture as in a community's operating system, the daily script that guides how people see and interact with themselves and each other. Beloved community is what that operating system looks like when it is shaped into mutual aid, resilience, self-determination, and excellence. Because in the midst of invisibility, Black people in this country have had to build systems of care and belonging in order to survive. It looked like the aunties on the porch who knew everyone and everything. It smelled like Big Mama in the kitchen, making that cornbread recipe that she learned from her Nana. It felt like how the neighborhood always found a way to make sure everyone had what they needed to get by. Nearly a decade ago, I started working for a community organization in a Black neighborhood known as Southside, located just a short walk from where we are right now. Like many historically Black neighborhoods in this country, Southside is a place with a heartbeat. And like many historically Black neighborhoods, Southside is the part of town that the dominant culture never paid much attention to until they needed to take something from it. That is structural. It is an engine of invisibility, and it is the broader truth that lives just outside the sight line of the dominant narrative. So, Allow me to break it down from the side of town that always seemed to get the runaround. Before the colonizers came with their diseases, this was sacred Cherokee land, and it was stolen with violence and paperwork dressed up as destiny. This city is named for a white man who enslaved the ancestor of Arthur Ashe, the only black man ever to win the singles at Wimbledon, the US Open, and the Australian Open. After independence from the British Empire, the US government gave the land that will become Buncombe County to a former soldier whose family continued to own black people even after he was dead. And on the eve of the Civil War, this very county had 293 prominent families that listed black people as property, with some of those family names memorialized to this day on street signs and landmarks. After emancipation, black men built the railroads that carried prosperity to white people in Asheville, and black women cleaned the households where that prosperity lived. Black life remained invisible, not just because the law demanded it, but because the dominant culture never thought enough of black people to include. Southside was born when proud, hardworking black people formed beloved community in a town that failed to see their humanity, and on land the ruling class didn't even want at first. The resources were never equal, yet Southside rose to become a thriving black neighborhood anyhow, a brilliant example of black excellence in Western North Carolina, because that's what we do, baby. Then in the 1950s, a federal program promised to wipe away blight and replace it with new roads, new homes, and a shinier story. In textbook language, blight meant decay, overcrowding, obsolete design, and anything officials said threatened public welfare. But Dr. Wesley Grant, who was alive at the time, he had the receipts. We have lost more than 1,100 homes, 6 beauty salons, 5 barbershops, 5 filling stations, 14 grocery stores, 3 laundromats, 8 apartment homes, 7 churches, 3 shoe shops, 2 cabinet shops, 2 auto body shops, 1 hotel, 5 funeral homes, 1 hospital, and 3 doctors' offices. The East Riverside Urban Renewal Project performed open heart surgery on Southside without consent or anesthesia. This botched operation led to unprecedented displacement, and it sparked a steady exodus of Black Asheville's best and brightest as they left for opportunities in other cities. And as if the impact of urban renewal in Southside wasn't enough on its own, the neighborhood suffered from decades of disinvestment until it was discovered by a new generation of white people moving to Asheville from someplace else. Suddenly, what's old and abandoned is now the trendy part of town, where all the bars and coffee shops start popping up. New branding, new districts, new fences, new stories told on top of the old ones, as if to say the neighborhood is new because the real estate agent said so. As a result of navigating the long-term impacts of displacement, disinvestment, and widening gaps in food, housing, and health, Southside was selected in 2017 as one of 25 communities nationwide for Fresh Flow, an initiative of the Kresge Foundation focusing on food, equity, and neighborhood power. In a town where Southside had long been overlooked, This was a rare moment of being seen by an out-of-state institution. And my role was to support the resident steering committee leading the work on the ground. Artists shape culture. Now remember those 14 grocery stores Reverend Grant spoke about? Not a single one has returned to this day. So Shavonda Harper, a Southside native and steering committee member, got together with her neighbors and started a garden that is known today as Southside Community Farm. The idea was food sovereignty and belonging in the same breath. Create a space where neighbors could gather, organize, and feed each other, because no one was going to do it for them. Residents were trained and paid to build a pavilion at the farm, and in the summer of 2018, more than 200 people gathered for Southside Rising, a celebration of artists, food, and culture. Culture shapes community. In 2019, young artists from a program called Word on the Street held an event called Southside Stories. They led writing exercises and art activities like collages and recorded interviews with elders who shared stories about Southside before beloved community had been lost. Fun fact, one of those young artists is now an adult studying fashion at design school in Atlanta, and this vest I'm wearing is her design. Now let me show you what happened when Southside started creating change. Although the Southside Avenue has appeared on city maps since 1913, the Southside neighborhood was not officially recognized until 4 years ago, when Shavonda and her neighbors formed SUNA, the Southside United Neighborhood Association. When the city announced plans for the adaptive reuse of the historic landmark Walton Park Pool, Shavonda and SUNA designed and led a community-centered engagement process as part of a contract with the city. This led to an intergenerational steering committee of residents who articulated the community's vision into a statement that guided the city's design team. And while it's not the same as repairing a beloved community landmark, it is an example of how SUNA helped the city model a way to plan with residents as opposed to planning for them. It's a brilliant example of resilience, and there's 10 more stories I could share just like it, but here's the truth. Most people will never hear these stories at all. Why? Because the invisibility engine is real, and it keeps moving whether we acknowledge it or not. So, you have a choice. Extraction, which honors the engine and sees only what the dominant story shows you, or repair, which learns what the engine makes unseen and moves in the right kind of relationship with communities that have been paying the cost. The choice is yours to make. And should you choose repair, here's a simple way to get it right. If you move to a place like Southside to live or start a business, think about what story you're stepping into. What was there first? What was taken? What was renamed? Be curious and learn which residents are doing the work to repair the harm. Because if you can find those people and you can support what they are building, you're not just watching a city change. You are changing what change means. That is how repair becomes more than an idea. That is how beloved community becomes more than nostalgia. And that is how a city learns to tell the truth and then live like they learned from it. Can I get an amen? Amen. Ashe and thank you.